For centuries, this tiny brown seed sat at the center of espionage, massacres, disappearing islands, and global war. Entire empires crossed oceans for it. Men died protecting its location. And at one point, the Dutch traded Manhattan for a tiny island that produced it. In 1592, a young Dutch clerk sat at the port city of Goa and did something quietly dangerous. He copied maps, Portuguese maps, secret ones, charts that the crown had guarded for nearly a century, routes to the islands of the east, to the places where the most expensive things on earth grew in the wild, unmarked, unmapped, unreachable by anyone who didn't already know the way. To possess these routes was to possess power. To share them was arguably treason. So, here is the question that opens this story. Why would empires, Portuguese, Dutch, British, French, spend lifetimes, fortunes, and a truly staggering number of human lives to keep a handful of tiny islands off the map? What was growing there that was worth a death sentence to reveal? It wasn't gold, it wasn't silver. It was this, a small, unremarkable looking seed. But here's what makes it strange. Crack open the fruit, and you will find the seed wrapped in this vivid red lacework, almost like it's wearing a net. Botanists called it an aril. Spice traders called it mace. And the seed at the center of all that drama? Nutmeg. In medieval Europe, nutmeg wasn't a kitchen spice, it was medicine. When the Black Death was tearing through cities, killing 1 in 3 people across the continent, physicians told people to carry nutmeg. Stir it into a pomander ball, grate it into your wine, wear it around your neck. Did it work? No. But people were desperate and nutmeg smelled like it might. And that fear, that enormous continent wide fear, turned a tropical seed into the most expensive medicine in the world. Wait for wait, it was worth more than gold. Traders made their fortunes on a single successful voyage, a single one. By the 1600s, the Portuguese were out of the picture. The Dutch had moved in, and they didn't come to trade fairly. The VOC, the Dutch East India Company, is one of the most powerful corporations that had ever existed. It had its own army, its own navy, its own courts and prisons. And the man they put in charge of the Banda Islands was named Jan P. Cohen. Cohen was the kind of person who got things done. You just really wouldn't want to be in his way when he did. The Bandanese had been on these islands for thousands of years. They had grown the nutmeg, traded it, built their whole way of life around it. When the Dutch showed up and demanded total control, they pushed back. What happened next is one of the darkest chapters of the spice trade. In less than a decade, a population of around 15,000 people were reduced to fewer than 1,000 through massacres, forced labor, starvation, and disease. Cohen brought in Dutch colonists and enslaved workers to replace them. And to make sure no competitor ever got their hands on a viable seed, he had all the nutmeg treated with lime juice before it left the islands. The seeds arrived in Europe sterile, worth a fortune as a spice, worthless as a plant. And then came the trade that still makes historians do a double take. In 1667, the British and the Dutch were wrapping up a war and sorting out who kept what. The British had Run Island, a tiny rocky strip in the Banda Sea, barely 3 kilometers long, absolutely covered in nutmeg trees. The Dutch had a struggling settlement on the northeastern tip of North America. The Dutch gave up the North settlement to get the Run Island. That settlement was called New Amsterdam. You might know it better as Manhattan. For decades, the Dutch monopoly held. Prices remained high, the spice remained rare, and the Banda Islands stayed under tight control. But monopolies create temptation, and somewhere in the shadows, another spy was preparing his move. His name was Pierre Power, which in French means Peter Pepper, making him almost certainly the original Peter Piper who picked a peck of pickled peppers. A botanist, a diplomat, and by any honest assessment, a highly capable team. In the 1770s, Power succeeded in what dozens before him had failed. He smuggled fertile nutmeg plants out of the Banda Islands and established them quietly and successfully on the island of Mauritius. The Dutch monopoly did not collapse overnight, but it began to unravel. From Mauritius, the tree spread to Reunion, Zanzibar, to Grenada, which today remains one of the world's biggest nutmeg producers. The spice that had once required a death sentence to obtain now sits in supermarket in small plastic jars for under 3 euros. Next time you reach for the nutmeg to elevate your dish, grating a small pinch into your morning coffee, consider what you are holding. A seed that only grew on 10 islands in the world, that was believed to hold off death itself, that men drew secret maps for, stole routes for, built navies for, that was traded in one extraordinary act of colonial arithmetic for the island that would become the most expensive real estate on the planet. All of that compressed into a pinch of brown dust. History lives, sometimes on a spoon. If you could trade a whole city for one ingredient today, what would it be? Every ingredient has a story older than the recipe. Stories travel, so do words.